Hey everybody, welcome to Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. If you're new to the show, this is a live Q&A segment, so if you've got questions you'd like to ask about nutrition, fire those into the chat box and we'll get as many answered in the time today as we can. Now, if you missed our Tuesday show on constipation, IBS, and diarrhea, and healthy bowel movements, make sure you check that out. We can put a link up in the feed. If you missed it, you can go back and watch the full crash course. So without further ado, let's dive into your questions. Luann wants to know, what are the best vitamins to take for constipation and how much water should we be drinking daily? So as far as the best vitamins, there's not like one magic vitamin. I'd say if one vitamin was going to improve your bowel movement, vitamin specifically be vitamin C at higher doses. Vitamin C can act like an osmotic and pull water into your bowel and help alleviate constipation or constipation symptoms. And so that would be a real simple thing to do. And many people, anywhere from 2 grams all the way up to as much as 10 or 15 grams of vitamin C can really help to pass a movement, especially if you're super constipated and haven't had a bowel movement in 5+ days. It's a very easy way to get a bowel movement going. Now, as far as just what can you take in terms of vitamins just to support healthy motility and to support healthy gut function, really just a good quality or high quality multivitamin. Now, if you're talking about minerals, that's another story. Minerals would be magnesium, would be one of the best things to use to overcome constipation. Anywhere from 200 to 1,000 milligrams of magnesium can be quite helpful in that regard. How do you know if you have diverticulitis? Well, you might have some intense pain in your lower abdomen, lower intestine. But really the only way you're going to know is with some imaging. There could be like a clinical suspicion. If you visit your doctor and have that conversation, they might have a suspicion, but to confirm it with degrees of certainty, you'd really have to have imaging or a scope to identify it. Is eating too much animal protein a cause for constipation? What's a good amount of protein to decrease by? So if you suspect you're eating too much protein as a means to creating your constipation, how would you go about reducing your protein? It's not like as a magic number. I think you just would want to look at the types of protein that you're eating, because for some people, they do fine with things like fish, they do fine with eggs, and those are all animal protein sources. But when they go into the family of red meat like beef, bison, or lamb, they don't digest it as well. Some people have a weak stomach acid production, and so it might not just be the quantity of the protein so much as it is the type of the protein. But again, you could also reduce the type or the overall quantity to see if that's helpful. Question: extreme colon inflammation, bleeding, hemorrhoid causing blockage, severe depression causing this. I'm gluten-free. Take walks. Do you recommend any supplements? Recommend you get with a good doctor and clarity on whether you're gluten-free in a traditional sense or whether you're grain-free, because many people that are celiac or have been told to go gluten-free continue to eat things like corn and rice and oats and quinoa or other pseudo grains, and that's part of their problem. So I would encourage you, if you haven't already, read No Grain, No Pain. Follow the protocol. Watch some of my YouTube shows on No Grain, No Pain. You can just type that into the search engine to get better clarity. But, a lot of people that have persistent constipation and they think they're gluten-free when technically they're not 100% gluten-free. What does yellow diarrhea while fasting mean? It means you're probably dumping bile from your gallbladder. Yellow discoloration like that a lot of times will come from bile. And so fasting can stimulate contraction of the bile ducts, or not the bile ducts, but of the gallbladder into the bile duct, and that can lead to a yellow discoloration or yellowness in the stool. Now, it could also mean that if you're fasting and you develop diarrhea, that you're purging. Many people purge during a fast, and so Some of that fat might be, or some of that yellow discoloration might also be excessive fat. Is it safe to use faucet water if I boil it? It's safe in the sense that you're boiling any potential microorganisms that might be contaminating your water, but it's not necessarily safe if your water contains heavy metal contaminants, pesticides, medications, and other chemicals. Boiling the water doesn't rid the water of chemicals. Now, distillation can, but boiling, no. Boiling is predominantly used to destroy any types of microorganisms that are in the water. What are polyps caused from in the colon? There are a number of things that polyps can stem from. I mean, we know that folate deficiency, vitamin B9 deficiency can contribute to polyp formation. Calcium deficiency, vitamin D deficiency can contribute to polyps. Fungal overgrowth, or yeast or candida overgrowth can contribute to polyp formation. So a number of different things. It's not just one cause. Let's see here. I have had my gallbladder removed and my bowel movement floats. Is that a good or bad thing? It means that you're not absorbing fat, and that's very common of those of you that have had gallbladder removal surgeries. Bile, which is produced by your liver and secreted by your gallbladder, is something that helps you emulsify the fat in the food that you eat so that you can properly absorb it. So if you've had your gallbladder removed, the timing of gallbladder release from the liver to the intestine can be hindered. And so now your digestion and absorption of fat is now hindered, and that can show up as floating stools. It can show up as yellow or clay or tan colored stools. One of the things that many people with gallbladder removals rather, find helpful in supporting digestion is using ox bile. So, finding a good quality supplement with ox bile can be extremely helpful. We have a product called Lipogest in that realm that, when people come to see me in my practice, if they've had a gallbladder removal, a lot of times we'll put them on Lipogest as a tool to help support their digestion properly. Rick says, I have to go to the bathroom several times within 2 hours after getting up. Work has noticed and complained. I have Barrett's esophagus and on a PPI, 20 milligrams daily. You need to figure out why you have Barrett's. I mean, most of my experience in people with Barrett's is that it's being caused by what they're eating. Generally speaking, and this is true of any type of intestinal inflammation or GI tract inflammation, whether the inflammation is in your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach, whether it's in your small or large intestine. Generally, there's two primary things that will cause inflammation in those regions. And one is what you eat, the food that you consume, and the other is whether or not you have an infection. A number of different inflammatory bowel conditions are known to be caused by different types of bacteria or fungal overgrowth. So, for example, inflammation like Barrett's can be as a result of a bacteria living in your stomach called H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori. We see a lot of times people with inflammatory bowel disease have C. diff infections in their lower intestine. So ask your doctor to rule those things out, but then also look at what you're eating. Food is a major contributor, and for many people, the inflammation, and I've seen this a lot with Barrett's, where Barrett's just goes away for many people who go on a true gluten-free diet. So if you haven't already looked into gluten as a potential for yourself, do so. You can take our gluten quiz at glutenfreesociety.org. It's a free quiz. We can put a link up for you there. Or you can get tested for gluten sensitivity. But if you are gluten sensitive and you're continuing to eat gluten, it's going to wreak havoc on your GI tract, and it's going to create inflammation that can manifest in a lot of different ways, not just as celiac disease. Celiac is one of many types of manifestations of gluten exposure for people who are gluten reactive. Let's see here. Angeline says, my niece is 42 years old. She has a bowel movement once a month. Wow, that's it. That's a bad deal. When she has her period, how does a period stimulate bowel movements? Most likely progesterone. When a woman's having her cycle, there's an increased stimulation of progesterone, and that can have a stimulatory or contractile effect on the bowel. Depending on whether or not your niece also has severe cramping during her menstrual cycle, sometimes the cramping that occurs again through that hormone change, even though the cramping is around the uterus, it can also affect the abdomen, and so it can stimulate kind of a push down through the bowels. But if she's having that kind of problem, she might want to get her progesterone checked. She may have low progesterone, and during her cycle, when her cycle starts, that kick up in progesterone might be what's stimulating that bowel. So simple blood test her doctor can order. What are the indications of poop consistency that would be noticeable of gluten intolerance? It's all over the map, Penny, because you can be gluten intolerant and have constipation. You could also be gluten intolerant and have diarrhea. You could also be gluten intolerant and see blood in your stool or mucus in your stool. And remember, gluten can damage the GI tract, and the way it damages the GI tract can manifest as symptoms, and those are not always uniformly equal across the spectrum of people. I've had wet diarrhea before a bowel movement. It's been going on daily for 2 months. You need to get checked for infection or microbial imbalance, Ruth. You probably have an abnormal gut bug that could be leading to that. Talk to your doctor about getting some tests done. How problematic is it to have occasional diarrhea, like bowel movements, because of stress? It's not. I mean, it happens. The bowels are not, just like you don't have a great day every day. Life has ebbs and flows, ups and downs. You know, your bowel movements, if you have occasional diarrhea from a stress event, that's not going to, dramatically impact the future health of your life. So I wouldn't lose sleep over it, Diana. But I would look at, if that's happening consistently because of stress, and look at, where's the stress coming from, and try to deal with that. Let's see here. Am I early or is my math bad? No, we started our show early today, Jackie. So your math is probably just fine. Lynn's asking when Ultra Nutrients will be back in. We're expecting them in November, December, Lynn. So hopefully we'll send a message out as soon as those are ready. What's your opinion on the best stool test to look at for pathogenic bugs? There's several. It's not one particular per se, but it's more the methodology, Braden. So you want to look for, if you're trying to really be accurate, a lot of these companies do what's called PCR testing. So polymerase chain reaction, which is a manner in which they use a DNA test to identify the different species. But the PCR is not, in my opinion, a super accurate way to assess for a pathogenic problem, because there's problems with PCR being able to accurately quantify how much is there. It does a great job at identifying a species. It doesn't do a great job of quantifying how much is there. And if we're talking about an overgrowth of a particular microorganism, you have to be able to accurately quantify. So cultures can be extremely helpful. Mass spectrometry can be extremely helpful so look for those types of technologies when you're considering which test to go with, and even more importantly, talk to a good doctor who you trust, who understands those technologies well and can order the right test for you. Let's see here. Can you advise on how to figure out if I'm not making enough stomach acid? Well, there's a couple ways. One, you can go and get what's called a pH endoscopy test done, and this can be done by a gastroenterologist, where they have you swallow a capsule, and that capsule measures the pH as it's passing through your intestines, and so it can help you understand whether or not you have adequate stomach acid by way of measuring pH, power of hydrogen. The other way to go about doing it is to use acid, and there are two different kind of home, say tests, but kind of more home detection, right? So you could take something like ultra acid, which has a number of different things in it, but one of the main ingredients is betaine hydrochloride, which is a form of acid. And you could take, generally you start with a couple of capsules before a meal. If you take it and feel nothing, you might have low stomach acid. So then we would generally have people double it. We'd have them take 4 before a meal. And if they feel nothing, we'd have them take 6, and then we'd have them take 8. And what we're looking for is, at what point do those capsules create a warm sensation where you feel like a warmth in the stomach area? That, if you're having to take 6, 8 plus of these types of capsules, then you most likely are not producing enough stomach acid for your meals. And so that's one way to do it at home. Some people also do the same kind of thing with apple cider vinegar. Take apple cider vinegar, a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar before eating a meal. If you're finding that your digestion is improving, that might be also an indicator that you're not producing enough stomach acid. At the end of the day, though, taking the pills or the vinegar isn't going to solve why you're not making adequate stomach acid. And that's generally, we look for causes in that regard. So there are a number of different reasons why a person's stomach might be damaged. The cells in your stomach, called parietal cells that produce acid, can be damaged by things like gluten and other food sensitivities. They can be damaged by the wrong kinds of microbes. They can be suppressed by taking medicines. So if you're using things like Tums, Rolaids or other antacids, PPIs, etc., then you're causing a reduction in stomach acid, which can be problematic. So at any rate, those are all good places to start your investigation. Have a long colon. Doctor said possibly born with it, taking daily stool softener for 30 plus years, still constipated, gluten-free, good diet. I would argue, Dawn, not that your diet isn't good in your mind, but have you had food sensitivity testing? Have you had nutrient testing? Have you had your microbiome assessed? Those are all things that your diet might be good on the surface, but for you as a unique person, there may be some things that you're doing that are at odds with your bowels, and that testing might give you a better indicator of what those things are. Do artificial sweeteners like aspartame, sucralose increase gut inflammation and cause iron sequestration, irritability to use iron? So I haven't seen anything on sucralose or aspartame affecting iron as much as aspartame is neuro damaging. So it can actually potentially create neurological damage to the gut, leading to peristaltic problems. It's also not good for your blood sugar. It doesn't, these non-nutritive sweeteners are not healthy, and they are not sparing of your insulin and blood glucose responses. So they're not a good idea. Now, sucralose, there's some early preliminary research on it impacting the microbiome, which isn't good. But sucrose is a combination of sugar and chlorine, basically. So it has the potential to compete with your body's ability to adequately, properly produce to produce thyroid hormone. And in that regard, could contribute to GI problems, inflammation secondary to constipation or to lower bowel movements as a result of reducing thyroid hormone capacity. So I would look at it more in that regard. But if you're using, I say drugs because that's what they are, in my opinion, aspartame and sucralose is bad news. They're not good for you. They're processed junk chemicals that have been pawned on the population as a safer diabetic sweetening alternative, and there's nothing healthy about them. My mom's food test showed okay with milk, but milk and products, I'm not sure I understand your question, tears her gut up? You mean it causes her to have excessive mucus production? Dairy is mucogenic, whether you're allergic to it or not. It's a mucogenic food. So, For some people, it's dose. She may also have a lactose intolerance. Oh, you're not saying tears up her gut. You're saying tears up her gut. She could have a lactose intolerance. It could be the type of dairy that she's consuming. Is it contaminated with pesticide, or is it grass-fed versus grain-fed dairy? Is it A1 versus A2? There are nuanced differences that she could experiment with. Pamela, you might try watching our show on dairy. We could put a link up for you. I go deep into dairy and the different types of dairy in that regard. Let's see here, Adam, 27 surgeries, gastric bypass reversed, distal revision reversed, multiple intestinal blockages, resection, paniculectomy, gallbladder removed, 13 hernias and more. What should I worry about? You should worry about why you've had to have so many surgeries. It's hard for me to comment, because if you've had that many surgeries at 32 years of age, what is it that you're doing? Were those surgeries necessary because of a trauma, a car accident, a major trauma to the intestine? Were those surgeries necessary because you have severe reactivity to what you're eating, and so it's created inflammatory havoc in your GI tract that's led you to need so many surgeries? I'd say you need to be worried about why you've had that many surgeries at the age of 32. Does sesame seed have any gluten type protein? Not really, not in my experience. There's been one study that showed that some people might have some cross reactivity with sesame, but it's not one that I see as a major problem typically. How do you know if your hormones are out of balance? I'm 44, have a period every month, pretty much on point, but I've been feeling all types of emotions, especially right before my period. You need to have a hormone assessment. Have a hormone assessment. Preferably have a comprehensive assessment where you're measuring your hormones throughout the month. There are doctors that can do specialized testing that kind of track your hormones over the month to see what kinds of shifts and changes, because your hormones are not static. They do have a pattern, a monthly pattern. Can being chronically constipated be a symptom of vagus nerve dysfunction? Yes. It absolutely can be. Your vagus nerve is one of the primary innervators of your GI tract. And so if you are chronically stressed, that can translate into chronic constipation as well through the vagus nerve. My ASD nonverbal 8-year-old son is really struggling with constipation since birth. Movicol, added fiber, Synacot, liquid, and plenty of water don't help. We have to use enemas. You need to look at what he's being fed. If it was since birth, it's probably what he's being fed can be a major culprit. If you get with a good functional pediatrician, they should be able to help. You measure those things. If you can't or don't have a good local doctor in that way, and you just want to measure what foods your son should or shouldn't eat, then you can do our testing at Gluten-Free Society. You can reach out. We'll put a link up for you, but we do several different types of food analysis and measurement there that might be super helpful for your son. I get my thyroid panel checked. What kind of supplements should I not use 1 week prior? Mainly biotin and iodine. Those two are going to be the two that generally will impact or potentially create a skewed thyroid TSH, especially iodine. Iodine will artificially elevate TSH and freak your doctor out. So make sure you're off for that week before your test. Will a fatty liver cause bowel problems for pooping? It can, because if you have a fatty liver, it could affect, number one, how well you're able to produce bile, and number two, how well your gallbladder is contracting to secrete that bile into your intestines. It's very common to see people with cholecystitis and bile problems also have fatty liver. So the fundamental thing there, Don, would be to figure out why you have fatty liver, what's driving that process. And if your bowel movements improve as a result of that, then it's a win-win. Do you know what choline supplement are usually made from? Yeah, I mean, if you're using our choline supplement, Lynn, we actually we use it, we extract it from broccoli, from organic broccoli. So as far as some of the other choline supplements, some of them are synthetically produced, some of them are corn derivatives, some of them are produced from other plant-based materials. So it just depends on the manufacturer, depends on the company. Let's see here. I began with your diet. I have vitiligo. After my lunch and dinner, I eat dry figs and dates. Have you some advice? Can we eat tomatoes? I mean, it depends. If you're following no grain, no pain, then tomatoes are out. Nightshades are out. Figs and dates might be problematic because any kind of dried fruit, if you have a problem in your gut with a bacterial or a fungal overgrowth, those two foods might feed those problems and make them worse. So without knowing whether you have that problem, it's hard for me to surmise. As a general rule, though, figs and dates are a healthy food. They're real food, as are tomatoes. But if you're following no grain, no pain, we don't do nightshades. So, stick to, if you're following the book, stick to phase 2. If you have vitiligo, you might also consider looking into your folate and your vitamin B12 levels, because deficiencies of those two vitamins could potentially contribute to that problem. You might also look at zinc. You might also look at vitamin B5. Do you know of a course outline in nutrition for middle school aged homeschoolers? It's my belief we need to educate our children in better functional health practices. I don't, and it's something I've been toying around with, at least in the back of my mind, Emma, for creating. Just a matter of time. But I don't know of one that currently exists, at least not aimed at middle school aged children. My wife has diverticulitis, 4 flares in 2 years, no hospital, but probably should have gone. Took Antis. We're worried one day she'll need a resection. Any ideas on how to stop it? Yeah, diet. You've got to get her diet dialed in. I mean, if she's having those types of problems, it's most likely because the food that she's eating is damaging her intestine and creating the outpouching, leading to the inflammatory reaction subsequently. So I've seen a lot of people over the years with a history of diverticulitis, and once they change their diet, they stop having flares. So you really want to get her diet checked out. What's your opinion on sesame seeds? I don't really have an opinion. I mean, I think they can be used. I don't think that everybody does well with them. They are problematic for some, as many seeds are, if you consume them in high quantities as a staple in your diet. So I would say, if you're following no grain, no pain, use them sparingly or with caution, and paying attention. Please tell us more about reversing hemorrhoids. Hemorrhoids are another manifestation, in my experience, of gluten sensitivity and food reactivity. The hemorrhoids are flared up angry tissue. I mean, the women can get them during pregnancy. It's not so much always food related in that regard, but a lot of people develop hemorrhoids as a result of the way they consume. So processed food, fast food, I've seen be major contributors to hemorrhoids, as well as inflammatory foods. So that's different for different people. Testing can give you more of a definitive. And that's where I recommend that people start, especially if you've already tried changing your diet, like done the best that you can, with the knowledge that you have. Sometimes getting tested makes a huge difference, because you could be eating something on a regular basis that you don't necessarily feel bad in the moment that you eat it, but it's causing a persistence of inflammation in your intestinal tract, leading to things like hemorrhoids. So test it, get tested. I had 18 inches of my lower colon taken out because of colitis. Now, every time I eat, I have loose stools. Any way to stop or slow it down? I'm grain-free and no sugar. You might look into probiotics if you're not already using some probiotics. There are different strains of probiotics in that regard. There are certain homeopathics because you've had part of your colon removed, a good chunk of it. There's some homeopathics that can help with that you might want to look into. In addition, you might also look at what else you're eating. If you had to have 18 inches of your colon removed, was it just gluten and grain, or was there something else that maybe you're also reactive to that's still causing a potential for you to have loose bowels? You might also consider digestive enzymes to help break your food down more effectively, and to digestive enzymes and probiotics are probably supplementally two of the best things that you could do in that regard. Outside of that, get some testing done to help you understand it better. Let's see. Does B6 make H. pylori worse? No, it doesn't. I don't know where you heard that, but there's no merit to that statement. I've been diagnosed with hydrogen and methane SIBO following a GPL1 injury in January that has caused gastroparesis. Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up. So many of you are out there taking Ozempic and these other GPL1 drugs that's one of the major side effects, is that they damage your pancreas and damage the peristalsis of your GI tract in a big way. So you really got to be careful with those medicines. There's a lot of people pushing that stuff because the pharmaceutical companies are making out like bandits, $1,000 a month for a prescription, all for the dangling carrot of weight loss. And weight loss can be achieved with diet and lifestyle so easily. But anyway, back to your question. You've got the diagnosis of hydrogen and methane-induced small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. You try, number one, obviously be off the medication. And then number two, time from the damage, time away from it. Number three, consider sometimes what happens when you have an injury like this is you develop what are called acquired sensitivities or acquired allergies, where you start reacting to things because those medicines can cause a leakiness in your bowel. And so you start reacting to food, and that's not helpful either, because that contributes to a perpetuation of the gastroparesis. So knowing which foods you should or shouldn't eat can become very valuable for you as you're trying to navigate your way out of it. You can also use things like magnesium and vitamin C to help your bowels move a little bit better. It's not the long-term solution, but it might be a short-term support for you, just so that you don't have a complete backing up of your bowels. You might also, when it comes to things like SIBO, you might also get a second opinion. Hydrogen and methane gases, can be also produced. Well, look at fungus. Look at potential for fungus. Because if you take an antibiotic, which a lot of people are prescribed antibiotics for SIBO, and you also have a fungal infection, you could treat the antibiotic, or you could treat the bacteria with the antibiotic. But if you have a fungal infection as well, you might make that worse, and that creates very similar symptoms and symptom profiles. So, and can also cause gastroparesis and constipation. So, you might consider getting a microbiome test to really assess what's growing and living inside of your GI tract, so that you have a better understanding of how to navigate through this GPL1 injury. I had a pretty weird infection a year ago and don't feel like I fully recovered. My digestion is messed up and so slow. I always feel fatigued, tired, and cold all the time. You need to get tested. If you had an infection, sometimes the infection is like the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. And what I mean by that is, like, for classic example with celiac, many people will eat gluten for 30 years of their life. They'll get an infection, and now all of a sudden they're reacting to gluten very severely. It's the infection is the trigger that sets the stage for the accelerated reaction. So that may have been your case as well. And so, looking at gluten as a potential, looking at other foods as a potential, as a driving force behind this would be an important move. Are there long-term side effects from long-term chronic intense constipation? Yeah. Constipation, when you have chronic constipation, you're not getting the waste out of your body. That waste now has access to permeate across your gut barrier into your bloodstream. So you're basically pooping into your blood. And now your body has to fight against those toxins. There are a number of toxins that come across the GI tract. There are what are called endotoxins, like lipopolysaccharides that can cause fatty liver, contribute to liver damage, can cause systemic inflammation, things like joint pain, and muscle problems. Also sometimes can get across your blood-brain barrier once it's got access to your blood, and create things like brain fog and memory issues. Neurological issues can be a manifestation. So if you've got severe chronic constipation, you need to figure it out. Can C. diff cause diarrhea? Yes. What could cause this bacteria to overgrow? Well, you could have been exposed to it, and your immune system might not have had the capacity to overcome it, and so it was able to colonize in your colon. That's a possibility. It's also a possibility. A lot of people that take heavy antibiotics, one of the post consequences to that can be C. diff overgrowth. You could have been exposed in hospital settings. A lot of the really, really nasty bugs that can colonize the GI tract, many people get what are called nosocomial infections, which is a hospital-acquired infection. When you go to the hospital, that's where all the drug-resistant bugs live, because that's where people are really sick and they're put on tons of antibiotics. And so the bugs that live in that environment and that air generally have a greater potential to be resistant to standard treatments. And so if you're in a hospital for any reason, it's possible you can pick it up there. What's the hype with C15 fatty acids on longevity? I don't understand the hype. I don't subscribe to that same hype. I think it's the hype, Monica, is people trying to sell you a C15 fatty acid supplement. You can eat C15 fatty acids by eating adequate animal proteins and meat. I think the demonization of meat in this country has really hindered people's nutrition to the point where they become sick as a result of becoming malnourished because they're scared of that food. How can I know that I don't eat? I don't understand that question. Hey, Dr. Osborne, I've had issues with building hemoglobin and red blood cells. I took all the things that build hemoglobin and red blood cells recently. I've been tested deficient in copper. So copper is something that builds hemoglobin. So that may be part of the reason why your hemoglobin has been historically low. Take copper for a time and ask your doctor to recheck your hemoglobin levels. There are a lot of things that can affect ultimately your red counts and your hemoglobin. Folate, vitamin B12, iron, copper, selenium, vitamin B6. Then you have things that can affect your bone marrow directly or suppress your bone marrow directly. And that, there are a number of environmental toxins that can play a role in that. I see mold a lot of times drive people's red blood cell counts down. I see chronic inflammatory arthritis. I don't know if you have a prior diagnosis of anything like that, but people like with rheumatoid arthritis generally have what's called anemia of inflammation. And so their hemoglobin, their red blood cells are typically chronically low. And so you may have an underlying inflammation that's driving that process too. So you should get that checked out. Can SSRIs contribute to constipation? Terrence asks. Yes, Terrence, they sure can. What are your concerns about Zoloft and hydroxyzine? 15-year-old daughter couldn't comply with your protocol diet after testing. I know meds are not the right path. Has chronic insomnia, anxiety, depression, and phobia. I think those drugs pose a tremendous threat to teenagers, especially Zoloft. If you look at a lot of the school shootings that have occurred over the years and these kids that are mentally unstable, one of the hallmarks is that they have been on mind-altering medications like SSRIs, and so you definitely want to keep that as a good and a strong concern. I look at, I don't know, I have a different approach. This is not a judgment of your parenting at all, so I don't want to become that guy that's telling other people how to parent their children. But just in my own personal philosophy with parenting, if it's a minor child under the roof of my house, they don't get a choice, and that's kind of the way I look at it. Now, I'm intelligent with them as far as I'm not like the dictator but I would certainly not give them an option about what they were or not going to eat. And if that meant I had to homeschool them and pull them out of school and pull them away from their friends in order to restore their health, that's exactly what I would do. So again, that's just what I would do. If that's helpful for you, maybe um, great. If not, I think you have a very valid concern about those medications and the long-term consequential side effects. And depression and suicide are also very common, I mean, in those types of medications. And so that's another reason why you want to really have that caution. I have vitiligo, so can I eat dried fruit or fresh fruit? Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, vitiligo itself is not it's not immune disease of the skin where you lose pigment, but it in and of itself, it doesn't mean you can't have fruit. I saw research shrink with TUDCA. Any other subs can help? I don't know what you mean by I saw research. You mean you read research studies where gallstones can shrink with TUDCA? If that's what you mean, okay, yes. You can also do bile. You can do vitamin C and taurine. Those are two things that can help. You can also look up doing a gallbladder flush or a liver gallbladder cleanse flush using Epsom salts and oil and citrus to stimulate your gallbladder to flush out stones. Can wheat be a cause of muscle and body pain? Yes, Terry, absolutely. You should check out my book, No Grain, No Pain. It's based on that premise. What are some reasons for chronic slow motility? The wrong food is a major reason. Prior damage to the GI tract or to the nerves of the GI tract, somebody who's under tremendous stress, somebody who has a tendency towards high anxiety, individuals who work in environments where they're exposed to different chemicals that might affect the microbiome. So this might be like a farmer who's using pesticide application on a regular basis, but not wearing protective equipment. I mean, there's just a lot of potential reasons there, Eric, for why that could be the case. My opinion on betaine hydrochloride, do you think it's more beneficial for digestion than an enzyme complex? It depends on the person. I think if a person has low stomach acid, betaine hydrochloride is a better choice. If a person has poor enzymatic secretions in their intestine and from their pancreas, I think a digestive enzyme is a better choice. And in some cases, it's both. We see this a lot in people with gluten sensitivity, because gluten can not only damage the cells of the stomach that make acid, but it can damage the lining of the intestine where enzymes are produced, but it can also damage the pancreas and reduce the efficiency of how the pancreas produces digestive enzymes. So, gluten's an equal opportunity digestive destroyer. So, both might be beneficial for those of you with that long history of gluten exposure and you're just trying to navigate your way back out. Tan color despite hydrochloric acid and bile, you might not be taking enough hydrochloric acid or bile. You also might be over consuming fat. We see this a lot in people following ketogenic diets where their diet is largely comprised of fat, and they are just eating more than what their body can produce in terms of being able to digest it appropriately. So that I would look at it at those two areas. Now that inflammation from gluten is under control after being off of gluten for 4 months, I seem to be having another issue going on besides getting older. I have a question about fiber. I don't have bowel issues, but I've recently had an anaphylactic event, which I believe is a result of histamine intolerance. Allergy test didn't reveal much, but due to low functioning DAO, I think a lack of fiber from being off all glutens might cause a lack of fiber to remove the excess estrogen and histamines. So if you're eating, a lot of people will say that about gluten-free diets, meaning that there's less fiber in a gluten-free diet. There's not less fiber in a gluten-free diet. There's less fiber in a gluten-free diet where a person's not making efforts to eat foods that contain fiber. So I would differentiate that, because I've read the research studies quite in depth on that argument about the danger of gluten-free diets because of their low fiber status. You've got a lot of assumptions there that you're drawing from. I think inferences would be maybe a better word. Have you had your DAO levels tested? DAO is diamine oxidase, for those of you who don't know, and it's an enzyme that helps break down histamine. And so if you are not producing adequate DAO supplementation might be of tremendous benefit for you. You might look into that. You might also look at your microbiome. There are several bacterial species that help degrade enzymes, or not degrade enzymes, but degrade histamine from the food that you eat. And if you are low in specific types of microorganisms, then you might be predisposed to having heightened histamine type reactions just from eating foods in general because of that bacterial imbalance in the GI tract. So I would look at measuring DAO. I'd look at measuring your microbiome and see if your theories are correct, because it may be something completely different. So, okay, but your question being, will fiber help remove histamines? And besides fruit and veggies, how can I increase my fiber intake? That's how you increase your fiber intake, is with plant materials. So that's the main way to do it. We have a product, an organic product called Ultra Fiber, if you're in the game for a fiber supplement, but fruits and vegetables are the way to increase it in your diet. Lentils, if you can tolerate them as well. Let's see here. Hey, Dr. Osborne, I've had issues with building hemoglobin and red blood. I think I answered that question already. It was just asked in 2 places. I'd like to take citrus bergamot as a natural supplement to lower cholesterol. Why? What is this? Now, I'm not trying to pick on you, Belinda, but I don't understand this this societal paranoia and anxiety and mass psychosis over cholesterol. Cholesterol doesn't kill you. Cholesterol is not going to kill you. I mean, unless you have what's known as genetic familial hypercholesterolemia, where your cholesterol is pushing 400 plus. Cholesterol is not the issue. People that have the highest cholesterol live the longest. I mean, these studies have been validated. We've been using statins for over 40 years, and we don't have less heart disease. So cholesterol can't possibly be the answer, because the empirical data doesn't play it out. So quit trying to lower your cholesterol with supplements. I mean, I know many of you are opposed to medications, but ask yourself the fundamental question: do I even need to be concerned about lowering my cholesterol? And if you haven't already, go back and watch my cholesterol course, my cholesterol myth course, because it'll help kind of shed a lot of light on some of these unnecessary fears that you may be having. Suffering from ulcerative colitis and taking medicines for a year now. I have acute pancreatitis as well. What do I do? You need to get with a doctor, a functionally trained doctor, to help you understand why your colon is inflaming and why your pancreas is inflaming. It could be gluten, it could be dairy, it could be any other variety of foods, but you could start with no grain, no pain, Sanjay. I would start there, because it's dairy-free, grain-free, sugar-free diet that might have tremendous impact on your bowels. So definitely start in that regard, but get tested, get checked out. If you've got acute pancreatitis, it's not a do-it-yourself at home project. It's a life-threatening illness, and you need to get help from someone who understands it. Can someone with HLA-DQ8 ever eat any quinoa or rice again, or does it have to be a lifetime habit? So I'm of the opinion that if you have positive HLA-DQ8, you shouldn't be eating quinoa or rice indefinitely. Because genetically, the way you would activate that genetic marker is by subjecting yourself to gluten or gluten-like proteins. It's the way you activate that gene to induce an inflammatory cascade. So you can quiet the gene by not exposing it to the things that drive the inflammatory cascade. How did you get pancreatitis? The biggest cases of pancreatitis that I see are gluten-induced. I've seen so many people be hospitalized with pancreatitis. When they get out, come to see me, we change their diet, and their pancreatic enzymes stabilize and normalize. So that's why I say look at no grain, no pain as a place to start your investigation and process. Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, been off gluten for 12 years, been off all grains for most of that time. Thyroid antibodies were still sky high, over 3,000 and over 500. Recently began leukocytine. Anything else I can do to reduce antibodies? Yes, selenium and inositol, about 400 micrograms of selenium. Get it rechecked. Don't take it forever, but you might have a selenium deficiency, and that definitely can drive up thyroid antibodies. Inositol deficiency also can drive up thyroid antibodies, so you might consider using inositol as well. We have ultra inositol and ultra selenium, Marcia. So those would be two other things you might want to try. Don't take them indefinitely forever, but take them for 3 months and have your thyroid antibodies retested and see if it does any good for you. The other thing you might want to consider is that there are other foods or other microorganisms that you have in your gut that might be contributing to an autoimmune reaction, keeping your antibodies high, and get those things tested and alter your diet accordingly. Older people have thin skin that bruise easy. What can we do to prevent this? I don't know that older people have thin skin that bruise easy. I think older people a lot of times are on medications that thin their blood, and so they bruise easy because their blood's being overly thin. They're being over-medicated. And most of them are under-consuming protein, and so their skin thins as a result of being malnourished. So I would say, let's get the protein up in the elderly's diets, 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, of lean body weight, and get their micronutrient levels tested, and also look at the medicines that they're taking and make sure that the medicines they're on are not blood thinners. Because, I mean, like aspirin, as an example, is a blood thinner. It'll cause blood pooling under the skin of the elderly if their doctors have them on aspirin as a heart disease preventative. I'm not a fan of that. The research has now come out and shown that aspirin doesn't really have a tremendous effect on reducing stroke, heart attack events. Despite that new research, doctors continue to prescribe aspirin as a blood thinning agent. You can naturally keep your blood thin with the adequate vitamin E, with adequate selenium, with adequate omega-3, and other vitamins that play a role in blood viscosity. Can gluten contribute to the loss of cartilage? Yes. It can lead to autoimmune reactions against your cartilage and against your joints. And so certainly gluten can play that role. Okay, I think we got to them all. It's that time to wrap it up. Oh, wait, we got one more that just popped in. I do have grains, but I always soak them before consumption. It is very rare. I will have refined or whole wheat, even organic. Well, I mean, if you're gluten sensitive, you can soak them all you want. You can ferment them all you want, but you're not going to get the gluten out of the grain. So if you're gluten sensitive, it's a bad idea to do that. Okay. One more just came in. Okay, we got 1 more minute here. My stools are regularly snake-like and smooth, but frequently only 1/2 to 1 inch in diameter. Is that a problem? I don't know what frequently means to you, Shannon, and I don't know what what patterns that you've associated with it when that happens. Like, does that happen when you have a heavy stress hit? Does that happen near your cycle? Does that happen when you eat certain foods? Those are the things that I would be paying attention to. It may not be a major problem today, but it could evolve into a problem over a longer period of time. That's the way illness sets in. It doesn't come on in one day. It comes on slowly and through subtle symptoms like the one you're describing. So I would investigate those avenues. Can gluten lead to degenerative disc disease? It can certainly lead to inflammation and malnutrition that contributes to degenerative disc disease. So, yes. I take your Ultra Digest before I eat dinner. What are the effects of it if I take it before lunch? Helping you digest. You can take it at any meal. You're not going to overdose on a digestive enzyme. If you're following the bottle instructions on proper usage. 2 caps prior meal is a pretty safe bet to help improve your digestion of a meal or support your digestion of a meal. Dr. Osborne, are you grain-free yourself? Yes, I am. Been that way over 20 years. Because I'm gluten sensitive is why I went that way in the first place. For me, it was affecting my lungs, and it was affecting It was affecting my heart and my abdomen. I had visceral fat accumulation around my abdomen, and it was driving up my body fat composition, but it would also hit my lungs, and I would cough every night for 15, 20 minutes before going to bed. And going gluten-free resolved both of those issues for me. It resolved the cough almost instantly, and it resolved the visceral fat deposition around my abdomen in about a month period of time. Okay, so thanks for tuning in. I know we did the show early today, so thanks for working around our schedule. I'm going to a conference this week, and so I'm going to get more education to bring back to you guys. So appreciate you being here. If you're new to the show and you want to learn more, come visit me at glutenfreesociety.org. If you want to learn about gluten and autoimmune disease and how to navigate and overcome chronic illness using diet and lifestyle interventions, that's the place to go. Sign up for our newsletter. It's free. I'll send you a ton of great free information, and I'll also send you reminders when we go live to do these live Q&As. Typically, they're every week, minus vacations and holidays. Also, if you are new to the show and you're looking for great supplements, come check out our store at Gluten-Free Society. This week, we have a sale on Ultra Digest, our premium digestive enzyme, as well as Biotic Defense, our premium probiotic. And we'll put links up for you in the feed here to go take advantage of that sale if you're looking for a great probiotic or if you're looking for a great digestive enzyme to kick things off. Additionally, share this information. Look, the way we get around our goal is to reach 100 million people. We're chronically being censored, and the only way we've ever been able to be successful at reaching more is through you guys. So word of mouth is where it's at. Share it, copy the URL, hit the like button, get it into the hands of a friend or family member who's struggling, who needs help. Because together, if we educate the masses, then the society, the new norm becomes great health instead of the norm, which it currently is, which is everyone struggling with disease because they eat like crap and don't even know it. So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you Tuesday night for another show on Dr. Osborne's Zone, and we'll be back here next Thursday for another live Q&A.